not like any other podcast, coming to you straight from the heartland where investing is told like it is. It's time for Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. Hold on, because here comes the next episode of the Paranoid Banker Podcast.
Well, hey there, Darin Garman here, and welcome to today's podcast. We are going to tackle a problem, and it's one that kind of sneaks up on you. It's one that we all know of, we've all heard about, and we've all experienced at one time or another. But I'm going to take a little bit different slant on it today in our podcast, and it is about procrastination. And I'm going to call it, in my world right now, with mainly what I deal with, I'm going to call it investment procrastination. But it really has to do with many other areas. It could be any area other than investment procrastination, but we're going to call it investment procrastination. And it really has to do with that word procrastination and not doing what you know you should be doing, and coming up with all sorts of things to get in the way of you finally doing it. I mean, I don't know if that's, I don't have Webster's dictionary in front of me for a definition, but I mean, I'm pretty close. But when it comes to investor procrastination, here is what I see a lot of times. And at first, on the surface, it sounds like, feels like, looks like that it makes sense to do this. There are certainly lots of reasons to do it this way, but I see this all the time. So let me give you an example of what I mean by investor or investment or investor procrastination, especially as it relates to owning your own or getting involved in an apartment community. Whether it's owning your own and maybe being the owner, manager, or whether you get involved in a partnership like we'd have opportunities for folks to get involved in owning their own apartment community and doing it that way. Either way, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is what I see happening a lot, and it's basically this. Getting one more book and reading one more book about, let's just say in this example, real estate. Watching another YouTube video about real estate. Listening to one more podcast about real estate. Attending one more seminar about real estate investing or owning your own apartment communities. Watching one more online presentation about investing in another apartment community. And, you know, the 4 or 5 examples that I gave you, so kind of a sidebar here. One of the things that I tell everybody, all investors, is, you want to get some education. You want to get some knowledge about what you're doing. You obviously don't want to fly into this blindly and just, yeah, okay, sure, without at least getting some information somewhere. But what I find happening, and by the way, I've been guilty of this too in more than one area, is we think we're doing something by reading one more book, by watching one more YouTube video today or next week, or, I'm not going to make that investment now. There's this conference coming up in 3 weeks. I'm going to wait 3 weeks, go to this conference for 2 days, see what I can learn, and then I might be ready. So I'll give you kind of a quick example. So I had a investor call me, wanted to make an appointment with me, which is fine. So phone appointment was last week. So he called me, and I didn't remember this gentleman, but on the phone, he told me that we spoke about a little more than 6 months ago. And when he told me about it, yeah, I remember. I didn't remember at the time we were talking, but when he said, yeah, we spoke 6 months ago, do you remember? And when he started reviewing that conversation with me, then I remembered who it was. And so we spent the next 45 minutes having a conversation and covering pretty much the same things we covered 6 months or a little bit more, about 6 months ago when we talked. The more we talked on the phone, the more I remembered we covered these materials. And lots of times, well, I asked you this before, but. And so at the end of that conversation, I recommended to him that he had been with me now as one of our members going on, I want to say going on 2 years. This is our second conversation. It's time to start investing. Now's the time. I mean, you've got all the information you need. You are pretty much ready to go based on your questions, based on where you're at from a capital standpoint, based on having been with me now for 2 years. But his answer to me was, well, there's this book, and I'm not quite done reading it yet. I'm going to go through this book, and then once I'm done going through this book, I may have a couple of more questions and then give you a call. I told him, I said, look, you can read as many books as you want. You can watch as many online videos as you want. You can go to YouTube as many times as you want. You can listen to my podcast as long as you want. That's great, but you're not accomplishing anything by doing it. A lot of us, and that's my point, okay? A lot of us tend to use those items and think we're accomplishing something by almost substituting another book to read, another conference to go to, another podcast to listen to. And by the way, there's a fine line between continually educating yourself, motivating yourself, making yourself a better person by exposing yourself to information consistently. I mean, it's a great idea, right? But to use that maybe subconsciously sometimes as, hey, as doing something when you're not. So this gentleman, for example, he's had 2 calls with me. He's been with me 2 years. He's going to read another book. He thinks he's doing something. He's not. He's past that. He's procrastinating now. Okay. He thinks he's doing something. He's procrastinating now. My question to you is, where in your life right now are you doing the same thing? So, of course, I'm talking specifically about investing, and even on a micro level, owning your own apartment community and being involved in your own apartment community, especially with the trends that we're having and we're seeing and we will continue to have. But there's a ton of other areas this could apply to, right? Maybe it's fitness. Fitness is a good example. So, how many more uh, exercise programs are you going to read about? Nutritional programs, podcasts about it, videos about it, books about it, until you're actually doing something, right? And, there's 100 other examples I could use too. So, in this short podcast, I just posed the question to you: are you procrastinating? In my case, and in our case, are you being an investment procrastinator? And in addition, or any other areas of your life, are you doing the same thing? Because, I don't need you listening to 25 more podcasts, watching 28 more videos, reading 28 more books. You need to actually take action in the areas of your life where you should take action, right? So, short podcast today, but one thing I run into a lot that I thought would be something to think about when it comes to you, what you've got going on, what you find important, especially when it comes to investing, and especially right now with where we're at in our world in terms of trends with apartment tenants, apartment investors in demand, and the continuing demand that we will have for multifamily properties on all around the spectrum, where are you at with your knowledge? Are you gaining more knowledge? Are you getting ready to invest, or are you procrastinating? And is this happening in any other area of your life? All right, that's all I got today. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you later. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com. Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com.